Hi, everyone. Treeesa here from the Spiritual Wellness Meetup Community, Orange County. I'm so excited to be here today with Howard. Welcome, Howard.
Thank you, Treeesa.
So, Howard is one of our amazing Spiritual Wellness Meetup community members. And Howard, how did you find the Spiritual Wellness Meetup?
I think for me, it was just an opportunity to find a group where I could be outside and
Yes.
not necessarily doing an exercise hike, but doing a hike where I could
Right.
connect with nature and myself and with other people. So I went looking for that, and this was the
And there it was.
first one that I found.
Oh, I'm so grateful to hear
Yeah.
that. And so, for those of you who don't know, the Spiritual Wellness Meetup community, we're just a wonderful group of men and women, and we like to connect in nature. And so, we have mindfulness hikes, and I run mindfulness, earthing, and grounding and Qigong sessions. So, it's just a wonderful group where we all come together and enjoy mindfulness practice in nature. And so, I believe Howard's first mindfulness hike was in January 2023. Does that sound about right?
That does sound about right. Yeah, yeah, a
Okay.
couple of years.
So time has flown. And of course, one of the joys on these mindfulness hikes are just the rich, deep conversations you get to have on the trail. And so it's been such a pleasure getting to know Howard on these hikes. And we really, dive deep. We just share our experiences, the good times and the bad. And it's just been such a joy getting to know Howard. And I just was so inspired by Howard's journey that I'm like, we have to share Howard with everybody. He's got a beautiful journey and a beautiful story. And so, Howard, would you like to share maybe a little bit about your healing journey? Maybe some of the things that you've been working on or transforming along the way? Anything that
Sure.
feels good?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Teresa. Yeah, I think for me, I'm somebody who, after I think several relationships that didn't work, needed to spend a little time to look at myself and understand what's my responsibility in all of this. So, probably about almost 20 years ago is when I started to kind of dive in and take a
Great.
deeper look at myself and my patterns and my habits and
Yes.
how I show up in the world, and saw some things that probably weren't as good as they could have been. So really started to kind of spend some time more so for myself. I was very lucky that I found the world of men's work.
Great.
And that was kind of a good open door for me to go into and start to be in a community of men who
Yes.
similarly wanted to look at themselves and how they show up in the world,
Right.
and in a container where you feel really comfortable, and you can open up and
Yes.
know that you're around other men who are going through similar challenges or their own challenges and can
Right.
relate. So that was really the kind of that first step, and I've continued to be very involved in men's work over the last 17, 18 years now.
Amazing. Oh, I love that. And so, yes, so Howard's been, it's just so fascinating how most of us, as we move through our healing journey and just transforming into the highest version of us, that after we work, do that deep dive of looking within and kind of, learning to love all the messy parts about us. And then once we come and love ourselves so much, we're able to then really give back to others and be of service to others. So I love how Howard on his journey, after he's really, been working on himself and coming into his wholeness and loving himself, that he's been able to really give back in his community to this group, to other men. And so what would you say, Howard, about maybe what's been the most rewarding thing or big takeaway maybe that
Mm.
you've received from being of service to these other men, moving through their journey in their own time?
Yeah, I've had a couple of really unique opportunities in the last several years, as I've gotten further along in my own work.
Yeah.
Now had the opportunity to be kind of on the facilitation side, and
Yes.
very early in that stage, because I don't do that work professionally. There are
Okay.
plenty of people who do,
Right.
but as someone who's now had a good amount of experience, I've been invited in to start learning about how to facilitate a lot of this work for men who are new to it. So that's a really unique experience of not only the service, but what also comes up for yourself. What are the things that you recognize for yourself when you're now in that role of helping guide a man through taking a look at his work, taking a look at his shadow. And so those experiences have been really powerful opportunities for me to reflect on, what did I learn? How did I show up? Where is this person on their journey? Is this, are there some things I can learn from their experience too? What are the things that, they may have had a very different life experience than I've had, but what are some things that I can take away from that? And, every one of those experiences has been incredibly impactful and valuable. And then it also informs a lot of the work that I do professionally. I work in the nonprofit sector. So I'm of service most of the time. I work with organizations all over the country and some outside of the US that are doing some sort of social impact in the community. So, how I can show up for them and how I can be supportive of the work that they do is kind of intertwined with my own personal journey as well. So, it kind of all fits together for me.
That is so fantastic, Howard. Thank you so much for sharing. And what I love about what Howard is sharing is that, as a reminder, the healing journey, it's not linear, right? As we work on healing ourselves, and then when we're in a good place and we're able to give back and be of service to others, then more like things come up for us to look at and just integrate even more and become aware of. And so I just love the richness, and I'm just passionate about the healing journey and the transformation. How we just, if we're open to it, we can really transform into the highest version of us. And then we get that momentum where we build our confidence, and then we're able to show up in all areas of our life, in work, in personal, community, as the best version of us, and then really have such unique wisdom. Like everyone carries their own unique wisdom and spark of the divine that then they can share and enrich us. And so I love hearing your story, because and then just being with Howard and hearing about your journey is just so inspiring and just enriches all of us. So thank you so much for, and again, when we do that healing work on ourselves, it just benefits everyone around us. It's such a positive, it just creates that positive force for good in the world.
Yeah. Well, and I think for a lot of people, it's an opportunity to be honest and transparent, where, maybe in parts of their life, maybe in large chunks of their life, they have assumed a role that they either think they need to play, or they are playing because they're covering up something else, or it's patterning from childhood. It can be a myriad of things. But they're not being genuinely who they are. They're afraid maybe to show up that way, or afraid of their power if they show up that way. So having the opportunity to heal in whatever place that might be, and finding what feels natural for someone to be in a place where they can start that healing is the most important thing. And then once they do, I think once you start to crack open and that light gets in there in the dark, that's when it all starts to pour out. And the more honest and the more transparent they are, the better. And, I heard something the other day was really interesting around, specifically, especially in the men's work community. There's, maybe some stigma for men around whatever it may be, and doing some sort of inner work. And, the term vulnerability gets thrown around a lot, right? And for a lot of men, first of all, they're not taught to be vulnerable. They don't really grow up in environments like that. In fact, a lot of men are shown that being vulnerable is actually weakness. And so you don't want to show weakness because of a myriad of reasons. But if you kind of reframe it, it's not necessarily being vulnerable, it's being honest and transparent. And men actually really enjoy being honest and transparent, especially with each other, and especially in a container where they know it's safe and it's going to be with other men. They can be incredibly honest and transparent, and that allows the kind of that spark. And that's, you know,
Yes.
kind of how most of us have been, you know, kind of introduced to our healing journey in the
Right.
men's space, is in a space where you feel like, okay, I can be honest, I can start to share some things, and guys will relate and guys will help me through this,
Yes.
but I don't feel a sense of weakness. And like I
Right.
say, the term vulnerability can be associated with that, and it can scare a lot of guys away.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying. And personally, I feel that vulnerability, being vulnerable, is a sign of strength, is like the greatest strength. And I feel like the people who are so courageous and so strong are the ones who can look at themselves and look at the darkness and look at the mess within and learn how to love it and come into the authentic expression. And so it's just so important for all of us to continue to just enjoy our healing journey and enjoy cleaning up the mess within and just
Yeah.
learning to love it, because then we can truly just come into our authenticity. And that's where, I mean, to be able to be yourself, true, you know, authentically who you are, that's the greatest gift in the world, is when we each find our authentic voice, our authentic expression, and can just
Yeah.
show up unabashedly of who we are.
Yeah. And the dark stuff doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad.
Right.
It's there. And
Yes.
and it should
That's
be
a
there.
human judgment, right?
Yeah, it should be there. I mean,
Yes.
we're supposed to be a mix of light and dark,
Yes,
and that's
yin and yang.
the yin yang symbol is light
Yes.
in the dark and dark in the light.
Exactly.
It's not all light or all
That's
dark.
right.
So
It's a balance.
it's a balance.
It's a balance.
Yeah, but I think for a lot of, again, especially in Western culture, a lot of
Yes.
men have either hidden their darkness away,
Sure.
or they express too much of their darkness.
Right.
And so it is about finding that
The balance.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's what a
Yes.
lot of the work can be. A lot of
Yes.
the healing journey
Yes.
can be, how do you strike a balance so that you're
Yes.
not too far into one or the other, and you can
Right.
find where that harmony is.
Yeah, I love that. I'm all about harmony, harmonizing the mind, body, and soul. I love that so much. And so, Howard, would you, if there are any men out there interested in these men's groups, is that something that you're able to share? Are they able to find these groups? Anything you can offer on that?
Yeah. I mean, there's lots of different places to go,
Yeah.
and there's a large community like you would find anything else if you go
Yes.
searching for.
Right.
There are some fringes that can be a little,
Okay.
you know, maybe, I wouldn't say dangerous, but a little
Okay.
different.
Okay.
So it really kind of depends on what someone's looking for.
Okay.
I've actually done a lot of my men's work through an organization called the Mankind Project.
The Mankind Project.
And
Okay.
they're an
Super.
international organization. They've been around since the late 80s.
Right.
They're really well structured, well led, well designed in the work that they do and how they lead men through a lot of processes.
Awesome.
And a lot of it is built around masculine, feminine energy, and
Right.
a lot of it is archetypal. If you
Oh,
to the
yes.
Jungian archetypes, a lot of it is based on the Jungian archetypes.
Okay.
I'd also say there's some great
Okay.
books out there. I mean, again, depending on if
Great.
people are
Yes.
readers and what they're into, there's lots of, lots of channels to go down. But
Yes.
personally, I found there's a kind of a seminal book in the men's workspace
Okay.
called Iron John,
Iron John.
written
Okay.
by Robert Bly also in the
Great.
early 90s. And it's really a look at an ancient fairy tale, Grimm Brothers fairy tale called Iron Hans, which is basically
Okay.
Iron John. And it is really, it's the hero's journey. So for people who
I
are familiar
love
with
that. Yes.
Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey, if you've ever watched Star Wars, that's the hero's
Yes.
journey. But it really is kind of
The force is with you.
yeah, it's really the unpacking of the hero's journey
I
of
love
that transition of boyhood to manhood, and going
Yes.
through the separation, the descent, the trial, the being led by elders, and then overcoming, whatever the obstacle is, meeting your darkness, and then being welcomed back into the community.
Love that.
So it's a beautiful kind of parable for life. And
Yes.
so the book itself is dynamite. And then, as I said, the Mankind Project does a lot of work that's kind of draws on themes from that and
Love
the
that.
Jungian archetypes. So it's really for a
Good
lot of men.
resources.
Yeah, it's great.
Yes.
It's great. Feels very empowering as a man to be in those environments.
Yes. And so what we'll do is I'll actually link below those two references that Howard has graciously shared with us in case any of you men out there are interested in checking it out. And anything else, Howard, that you'd like to share before we wrap it up?
I'd say probably one of the most beneficial things of the work that Treeesa does and the hikes that Treeesa leads is it's community and it's outside and it's embodied. And I think that's really the big thing, because a lot of times we can go outside and just spend all that time in our head. Right. And sometimes we can spend all that time even just taking in all the sights and sounds and smells, which is great. But what I've really appreciated is the opportunity to pause along the way and do some embodiment practices.
Thank you.
And that, I think, changes the dynamic of why you're there and what you get out of an experience. It's very different than going on a hike for exercise.
Right.
That's a very different. And I do a lot of those, and we're great. It's great we have access to that here in Orange County to do tons of that. But it's a different experience when you go out to do something that is guided around spiritual wellness and outside, and it's about grounding and embodiment and how nature is such a huge part of that. I think it's a very different and powerful experience, and to do it in community, because you can do some of these things on your own, certainly, but it's very different to be able to do it in community with other people who are there for very similar reasons, and find ways to connect. And I think that to me is one of the beauties. And thank you for what you offer to everybody here. I think it's great.
Thank you, Howard. Thank you so much. And I'm just so grateful for what Howard shared. And yes, so on these mindfulness hikes, I love to incorporate, like Howard said, we do some Qigong breathing, we do some Qigong stretches and flows. And so, yes, I'm just all about being in nature with everyone and just helping harmonize our mind, body, and soul with just beautiful Qigong practices of breathing, stretching, flows, so that we can actually have a portion where I kind of like to formulate it where we start off the mindfulness hike with some stretches to kind of warm up the body. Then we'll hike a little bit, and then we'll pause, and then we'll kind of work on the mind. We'll incorporate some Qigong flows to help us clear the mind. And then we'll hike a little more, and then we'll focus on the soul, where we can then kind of tap into our soul. So it truly, I feel, I like to create them with the intention of a mind, body, soul practice. So they're very intentional. So thank you so much for that wonderful feedback. So grateful. And
You're
just
welcome.
So honored to have you on our journeys and these beautiful moments we get to share in nature. And again, together, collectively, with all our energy, we're just creating just beautiful light in nature that not only is healing for ourselves individually, but that light that we cultivate as a group, it just radiates out, and it's able to also provide earth healing to the forest or the ocean, wherever we happen to be. So it's just kind of a win-win.
Yeah, and we need a lot of that.
We do.
The planet needs us to heal it, and vice versa. It's an ecosystem. We're all supposed to be in this together.
Yes. So I love that. So as we're receiving that healing energy from Mother Earth and Father Sun, we're also radiating that beautiful healing, loving light energy back into the earth. So such a fun practice. So thank you so much, Howard,
You're
for
welcome.
being here. So grateful for you. And if you all would like to just come on out and join the Spiritual Wellness Meetup Orange County group, check out the links below. You can get to know Howard more on our hikes, and would love to see you. So thank you so much, and we look forward to seeing you in nature soon. Thank you, Howard.
You're welcome. Thank you, Treeesa.